Okay. Well, we're going to start this over. And I'll just clip this when I make the video. When I get done with the video, I'll just clip the beginning part. What if I told you that there's life on Mars? What if I told you that I've been talking about life on Mars since 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. I've been talking about anomalies on Mars, life on Mars. I've done workshops where I've taught about the Mars technology and the anomalies there. I've gone live and actually on this YouTube account and taken you on a journey to Mars with me as we went into the Worldwide Telescope and accessed the rover's mast cams so that we can pan left and right, zoom in and zoom out, and showed you anomalies. We went anomaly hunting live on this platform a couple years ago. Many big podcasts that I've been on, I've talked about, the fact that they were going to release the evidence of life on Mars in 2025, specifically 2025, every single one of those podcasts. If you go back down my feed all the way back to 2011 and start moving forward in time, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you go, you'll find that I've been saying 2025 specifically. I've been on Gaia, on many shows on Gaia, Beyond Belief, Deep Space, Ancient Civilizations. Each one of those TV series, I talk about Mars, the anomalies on Mars. Even I was on the Buzzsaw several times talking about Mars, and I give you a specific date, a year, 2025, they're going to release life on Mars. So it's been the Sean Ryan Show podcast 2 years ago, Sean Kelly podcast a year ago, and again, more recently, about maybe 7 months ago, Joe Rogan podcast, probably about 8-9 months ago, Concrete podcast 3 years ago. And on all these podcasts, what do I say? I talk about Mars, I talk about the Mars anomalies, and I give you a date. I said they're going to announce life on Mars by 2025. And here we go, it's 2025, and yesterday, a huge announcement came out on mainstream TV, but nobody caught it. Why? Because, of course, there was a major catastrophe that happened. Somebody was assassinated. And so because of that, it's almost as if they timed it to happen at that time. It's almost as if they planned these things. Really strange. But that's what happened. It came out major news yesterday on major mainstream news channels across the board that they've discovered life on Mars. And it's the exact life that I said it would be. In these podcasts, I specifically say they're going to announce that they found bacteria on Mars. They're going to say that they found some type of bacteria or virus on Mars, and they're going to say aliens exist. We found life outside of Earth. Okay? And so that's what happened yesterday. Major global news. But because of the situation that happened yesterday at the same exact time, obviously that information and that news, that global news has taken a back seat. It's out there. You can look it up. It's on every major mainstream news channel. But I mean, we know what happened yesterday. So the assassination happened. Mossad, those sleeper cells that I've been telling y'all about, they have those sleeper cells. I told you that they waiting. If you watch that podcast, I told you they're just waiting on a word. They're just waiting on a signal. And when they get that message, those assets get that message, they go ahead and they complete the mission. And yesterday was another Mossad mission because the gentleman that they assassinated talked very publicly about going against Israel. And if he ever got into office, he would make a lot of major changes. And I think he was gaining enough popularity in the country to be able to get in some way, shape, or form, whether it's Senate, Congress, or whatever. So they decided to eradicate him long before he can get in there. As they say, dissenters are silenced. And so he was gaining too much power in a polarizing way against them. And so they just made a phone call to Mossad, and they sent one of those, disintegrating messages. And, do you accept this mission? And somebody accepted the mission and they took him out. That's what happened. Anyway, so back to Mars. So Mars is an amazing place. Mars is a place where You believe, or we've been taught to believe. We've been taught to believe that it's just a cold, dry rock. We have been taught that it's a cold, dry rock just sitting out there between 80 to 40 to 80 million miles away, depending on whether it's an apogee or perigee on its orbit around the sun from Earth. And it's just a worthless, dry rock, and it's just, there's nothing there. That's what we've been told. But that information is actually incorrect based on the science that they themselves have released over time. Now they've come up with a lot of new information. Okay. So number one, Mars has a magnetic field. It doesn't have a magnetic field as strong as Earth's. However, it does have several localized magnetic fields that do create a protective barrier close to the surface from radiation from the sun. Also, Mars spins on its axis just as fast as the Earth almost. It's 23.5 hours in a day. Now, the circadian rhythm of a human being is tuned to Mars's circadian rhythm, Mars's spin on its axis versus Earth's spin on its axis, which is pretty interesting that human beings are more in tune to the circadian rhythm of Mars than Earth. That's crazy, but maybe not so much crazy because the Sumerian tablets talk about people living on Mars. So maybe it's not that crazy at all. The Igigi were living on Mars and creating a civilization there, a concurrent civilization while one was being built on Earth, according to the ancient texts. You can go download them and read them yourself. Nothing coming off my dome here. And so somebody, I guess, back then decided to write a sci-fi movie back in the day when they were supposed to be hunter-gatherers trying to find a way to just get some food and, put a bow and arrow through a dinosaur or something. I don't know, but somebody wrote something and they talked about Mars and they talked about people living there and building a civilization there. And so the story is incredible. It's not a cold, dry rock. There is a magnetic field. Now, because it spins so fast on its axis, it creates something called bow shock. And this bow shock bends and warps, radiation around the planet. It bends and warps very dangerous particles, solar particles. And so they never reach the surface, which means that anything that's alive on the surface can live without getting its DNA damaged by cosmic rays and radiation. There's enough protection there if you're close to the surface. Also, released from the REMS unit data, Mars has oxygen. Not only does it have oxygen, here's the thing: it's leaking oxygen into the upper atmosphere, into space. So it's leaking. It's still leaking because of the gravitational field and the stratosphere. There's holes in it. However, it's leaking, but it's not depleting. There's oxygen leaving the planet on a very slow basis, very slow. But at the same time, more oxygen is being created. Where is the oxygen coming from? Where is it coming from? So they researched the planet deeper and they found a lot of methane, thousands and thousands of tons of methane being produced. On Earth, what produces methane? Life. Life produces methane on Earth. And there's a ton of methane, well, tons of methane being produced on Mars. And if methane is being produced, that means carbon monoxide and oxygen are being produced. Something's got a cycle going on up there. It's called on Earth a life cycle. Now they've discovered the clouds, not discovered, but they've announced and shown the clouds in a lot of the footage. There's morning dew. There are storms. They've uncovered a huge lake. I think it's 12 hectares. They've shown running water back. That was like maybe 7-8 years ago when they showed the running water down the side of the hills. Salt water. There's water under the surface, water on top of the surface. There's lakes. A scientific study came out that said that Mars soil is better for growing crops than Earth soil. They said that Mars soil is better for growing crops than Earth soil. So you see the preparation here. Why Elon Musk is talking about taking 100,000 people to Mars on a one-way trip. When he first came out with this statement, that was back in 2014. You could look up one of the original articles. He only wanted to take 25,000 people. Now he wants to take 100,000 people. And these people are very rich and wealthy people. What would make a billionaire want to leave the creature comforts of Earth? And as beautiful as this planet is, all the places that you can go and the sights that you can see, mansions and yachts and private jets and luxury, butlers and great food and ocean views and so forth, to go live on a cold, dry rock. I don't think they're going to be living in a tin can till they die. I believe that an infrastructure has already been worked on up there, and they're probably going to put on a suit to come say hi to the camera and then go back behind the mountain or the hill and go back into their underground shelter that's already full of all the luxuries of life. And it's probably an explorer's dream. Hell, I wouldn't mind going there to explore. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some of the Mars anomalies that I've been able to collect, and my team has been able to collect over the years. And you be the judge. I'm not going to influence you. I'm just going to show you some fancy rocks tonight. I'm going to show you some fancy rocks, and I'd like you to just meditate on it. Okay? I'm not going to tell you what I think they are. I'm just going to show you some things, and it's up to you to make your own decision. But it'll be interesting. So Mars has magnetic field. It has bioshock. It has atmosphere. It has oxygen, carbon monoxide, methane. Something else is very interesting. Soil, by the way, soil that's good for growing crops. They discovered ample amounts of xenon in the atmosphere and in the soil. Ample amounts of xenon, but not just any kind of xenon. They found weapons-grade xenon. How do we get weapons-grade xenon on Earth? Only by a byproduct of nuclear warfare. We only get weapons-grade xenon when we pop a nuke, whether we're testing it, right? Most likely, usually when we test them, we create a side product, a byproduct of it is called xenon, all right, with the X, starts with an X. Now, this weapons-grade xenon is in ample amounts in the atmosphere and in the soil. What did they call Mars in ancient times? The god of war. Didn't they call Mars the god of war? Why do you think they call it the god of war? Because there was a war. That's why. And the evidence of this war is all over the planet. Matter of fact, the ancient Atlantean war, in my personal opinion, I always signify when it's my personal opinion, extended from Earth to the moon and even to Mars. And I believe that there's significant imagery and evidence that there's damage going across the board from Earth, leading all the way up to Mars. Earth would be Giza. It would be Pakistan in Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley. It would be also going all the way as far as across to Colorado, to the Grand Canyon area. And I believe that a lot of those areas are a result of an ancient war that took place in the Mahabharata. They also had Vimanas that they said they could take a complement of men to any planet. And in some of the Sumerian tablets, they talk about going and taking an extended stay on the moon. Whether these things happen or not, hey, I wasn't there. All I can tell you is all these instances ended in war. And in this war, they were trying to annihilate one another. They went to the mountains where they had hid the WMDs, the weapons of mass destruction. That's where Bush got it from. And these were the family nukes. That same exact verse was taken and put into a major Hollywood movie called Dune. If you watch the newest version of Dune that came out a few years back, the Dune 1, the family nukes were inside, hidden in the mountain. I believe it was Dune 1, or maybe it was Dune 2. Maybe it was Dune 2, part 2. The family nukes were hidden in the mountains. And then, the general takes them to go find the nukes in the mountains, and only the son can open it with his DNA, unlock the safe to get the nukes out, the WMDs. That came straight out of the Sumerian tablets. Straight out of the Sumerian tablets. They just cut and pasted. Boom, put that in the movie. This sounds great. This is a hit, and it was. So Mars has enough to sustain life. Now, what happened to Mars? Mars used to be a habitable moon. It wasn't a habitable planet. Mars used to be a moon of Tiamat. Mainstream science all agree that because of the very strange elliptical orbit around our sun, Mars used to orbit something in the ancient past. It orbited something else. Well, if you take the debris that is now called the belt, well, it's called the hammered bracelet in the Sumerian tablets, right? All those broken stones that make up that ring that go around our sun, the asteroid belt. You put that back together, and then you go out into the inner Oort cloud where a lot of the debris went, to the inner Oort cloud, far beyond the orbit of Pluto now. It's just orbiting around our sun. And put all that back together, rewind it, it turns into a giant planet called Tiamat. And Mars was a planet, Mars was a moon that orbited Tiamat, a habitable moon that orbited Tiamat. When Tiamat was destroyed in the Sumerian tablets, specifically the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, Tiamat is blown up on an impact. When that happened, a huge chunk hit Mars. That's why one side of Mars is charred and the other side is very smooth. Mars tilted 45 degrees on its axis, which is why the equator is tilted. Global flood washed across the land, destroyed a lot of things. And Mars took this very strange orbit around our sun. Okay. Let's take a journey and take a look at a few things that I've been talking about over the years. Let's take a look at a Joe Rogan clip real quick. The side where Tiamat exploded, those chunks hit Mars on one side, created a very charged side, and the other side is the smoothest surface in the solar system, which is because of the global flood that created. And then Mars's axis on its equator is tilted 45 degrees on its axis, which means the mass shifted it down 45 degrees. They had a major global catastrophe there on Mars. That was Joe Rogan. This is Gaia. The same exact architect as the one on Earth. Basically, are we saying here that maybe they were built by the same exact people, or at least the same architectural design was laid out throughout this entire solar system? Because when you look into ancient texts, you find that the pyramids are mentioned throughout the entire solar system, even in other galaxies. So it's really amazing that pyramids would be consistent throughout the entire galaxy. Also, when you look at pyramids, you start to discover that they were used for various different purposes. Some were temples, some were actually used for healing purposes. Someone would walk into the pyramid, and because of the resonant design, it would create a specific type of a hologram that a physician could actually check out a person's body and see where they were injured or sick. Also, some pyramids were used as power generators, kind of like the Great Pyramid. It appears to be built on top of an aquifer, and that it may have been a power generation source, and also maybe even a multifunctional stone computer, because of very other technological aspects of the Great Pyramid that just can't be explained even today. When you look at Mars, there's a clear 5-sided pyramid which is a pentagonal structure. And when you analyze it, you see these buttresses in the corners. Now, these spherical buttresses look just like the same beams that give strength to cathedrals. But what's fascinating, when you look at the 5-sided pyramid, the line is slightly off center. So if you place Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man over that shape, it's actually the shape of a human being rendered out as a pyramid. The head is at the top, the 2 arms will be at the 2 top sides, and then the 2 feet would be at the 2 bottom sides. So it's a pyramid designed in the shape of a human being. Richard Hogan talked about the idea that this could be an arcology, meaning it could be a vast civilization inside that pyramid. You could have countless people living inside of an object that size. And if you go just west of that structure, you see another pyramid there that looks amazingly from an aerial view, just like the Great Pyramid at Giza. The likelihood that those objects are just randomly placed and they're just a trick of light and shadows just doesn't make any sense. Experts like Errol Torin concluded that the actual amount of geometric anomalies in the area is much higher than any other area on Mars, which is consistent with the algebra you would get if you were comprising an artificial human settlement surrounded by a desert. And you have all of these anomalies around this face. And the face itself could be a very large structure, maybe even a building. According to some of the ancient texts, it may have been attributed to an ancient Atlantean or Anunnaki named Alalu. Regardless, it's a very strange object, and you even have it where the sun rises in the east and illuminates this structure, meaning it could have been used as some type of place of worship as well. These amazing structures can be found all over our planet. As a matter of fact, these builders even built a pyramid in Antarctica, which is larger than the Great Pyramid at Giza. So these ancient structures are all over our planet. And the amazing thing about them is you can also find sphinxes all over the planet as well, where you see the lion body, the body of a lion and the face of a man. This is prevalent throughout the entire planet. And what's really amazing is when you analyze the alignments, the star alignments, it's aligning with the constellation of Leo. Why is that? Why the constellation of Leo? Well, when you look at the ancient texts, you find that there was an order to build this great sphinx, for example, at Giza, to align with the constellation of Leo and put the face of Thoth on it initially, the Atlantean priest king who was the son of Enki. Much later, it was recarved to the son of Marduk, his actual son's face. So the face had changed, which gave it a very small head. What's amazing is the fact that they've aligned with the constellation of Leo because they're trying to give a marker as to the time period of when the Giza Plateau was built and other civilizations on this planet were developed. And when you actually go back one precessional period, you come back to the Ice Age. So we have to go back 2 precessional periods to where we actually end up around 36,000 years ago, when it's the perfect time to build the Giza Plateau. Everything is at peace on Earth, and Thoth the Atlantean, or some may call him an Anunnaki, he actually claims to have built the Great Pyramid in his Emerald Tablets. His exact words are, "I builded the Great Pyramid." And so he's the one who actually became the master architect and then laid out the architectural plans for developing pyramids all over the planet Earth. Okay, so that was, I filmed that back, I believe, in 2018 on Gaia. And yeah, by the way, you know, when I get on the camera, I know how to do my thing. You know what I'm saying? When I get on the real cameras, when I get on the production cameras, I'm straight, you know, I know how to talk. But again, this is something I've been doing for a very long time. I've been talking on these topics for a very, very, very long time. I remember when I used to post about Mars on Forbidden Knowledge on Instagram back in like 2012 and 13. And I used to get, I only had like 20,000 followers, and people were attacking in the comments. Oh, you're crazy. You know, these are rocks and there's no such thing and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care. I just kept on posting more information. You know me, I just keep on going. You know, yeah, people start throwing blows. I just start, you know, doing a rope or dope. And I just keep on working. I just keep on grinding, man. I just keep on grinding and putting out the information. Whatever resonates with me, whatever resonates with what I feel is accurate within my research base, I'm going to continue to push it and put it out there. And whoever resonates with it, they do. Whoever doesn't resonate with it, hey, whatever, it's all on them. I really don't care. Nobody's opinion is going to come out of my mouth. That's one thing I can guarantee. You will never get your opinion to come out of my mouth. I don't care what happens, period, point blank. All right. Let's check this out. All of a sudden, the new science has come out. Mars has a rotating magnetic field. And not only that, it spins on its axis almost at the same exact speed of Earth. Day on Mars is like 23.5 hours. And so that speed of the rotation on its axis creates something called bow shock, which bends and warps cosmic rays and radiation around the planet. Along with the weakened magnetic field, you can actually survive. Anything with DNA can survive on the surface. Also now, the science data has come back from the REMS unit we sent there, and there's oxygen. There is oxygen. There is oxygen on Mars. Yes, there's oxygen. Not only that, guess what they said about the soil? They said the soil on Mars is better for growing crops than the soil on Earth. Okay, that's the Sean Ryan Show, another megalithic podcast where I shared some knowledge in reference to Mars way ahead of time. Way ahead of time. We're going to look at some Mars anomalies tonight, too. I want to take you into here, directly at the camera. Here's another object that has been discovered on Mars. This is from the Spirit rover. I don't think it's a rock. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's a rock. Here's another object. I call it the R2-D2 type artifact found on Mars. It was found by Rami Bar Ilan, originally one of the anomaly hunters, one of the famous anomaly hunters. Here's another object on Mars. Just utilizing the tank for comparison. Rami Bar Ilan, again, a great discovery. Maybe Mars was the god of war. And here goes another Ankh sitting on this rock, just laying out in the middle of nowhere. Another Egyptian Ankh laying out on Mars. Don't know if it's Egyptian, but I'm going to call it Egyptian because it reminds me of an Egyptian Ankh. But this is one of about 12 or 13 Ankhs that we've found laying around. This object, if you take a really close look at it, you can clearly see that it's a very ornate object. In other words, there's a lot of feature and characteristics on the surface of this object. Here's another amazing image, a 4-story tall, what looks to be an ancient Egyptian statue carved out of Victoria crater on Mars. Another amazing anomaly by Martian that had been actually rediscovered by Joe White and many other anomaly hunters all around the world. They all came up with the same exact image. What's going on Mars? Somebody didn't read the Sumerian tablets, didn't they? They're called the Igigi, and in these texts, in the Epic of Atrahasis, which is located in the British Museum, you discover that these Igigi, I-G-I-G-I, they were living on Mars. They were Anunnaki, but they were the working class. They were the workers, the worker bees. In other words, they weren't supposed to be slaves, or they weren't slaves, but they were working like slaves pretty much. So let's say that you own a construction company, okay? The owner of the construction company, he has clean fingernails. His fingernails never get dirty. All he does is take phone calls and make appointments and meet up with other billionaire people and millionaire corporations, and he does deals over the phone. But he never gets his fingernails dirty. Underneath him, that would be Anu from the Anunnaki, by the way. Then underneath him, you have Enlil. Right? Enlil has got a lot more power, and Enki's got some power, and then you have Thoth. So you got those three underneath. One of them is going to be, the master architect that's going to lay out the blueprint. Another one of them is going to be like an engineer, and another one's going to be like a foreman. Okay, they themselves are not doing the work. These ancient sites were not built by aliens, but these advanced beings who had the advanced knowledge taught people how to utilize the technology and how to follow these blueprints and these engineering plans to build and construct these ancient megalithic sites. So the sites themselves were built by humans in the end, but before the humans got to them, the Igigi were doing all the work, and they got tired because they started feeling like they were enslaved. In the Epic of Atrahasis, they decide to come together and have a coup, go against the god, the king and the god, which is Anu, the head god, who also was the king of the whole planet, basically. Enlil, which is his son, and his other son, Enki. They want to go against them. So they encircled their camp at a place called Adam's Calendar in Africa. And Adam's Calendar has been discovered. It's the location of the oldest gold mines on Earth, Adam's Calendar. Look it up. And there's a structure on the hill there, which the dilapidated base of the structure is still standing today. And they came there to go to war. And I read the Epic of Atrahasis in real time on this YouTube channel years ago. I read it. I read the Epic of Atrahasis on here. There's a rabble at my door. Right? They're banging on the door. They're trying to get the kings to come out so they can attack them. And then they eventually do come out, but they negotiate a deal. They say that we're going to get the humans to do the labor for y'all. So we're going to pass the workload off to the humans. And then you guys just train them and they'll do the work now. From this point forward, it'll be them doing the labor, not y'all. To summarize it for you. And that's when we took over and started doing the work for them. However, and again, that's according to the Epic of Atrahasis. And that's in the British Museum. I visited that tablet myself in person years ago. I took pictures and put it online. Okay. And so the point that I'm making here is they were so pissed off about the labor and the workload and the fact that they didn't have women. That's one of the biggest complaints they had in the tablets. These were the sons of God that made it with the daughters of men, because when they came down from Mars to Earth to go to war against God, Anu, after they won the negotiation, they said, we're taking women with us, and they took women back with them. So they snatched up women, human women, and they took them with them. And so these were the sons of God that made it with the daughters of men in the Old Testament of the Bible. Gave birth to the Nephilim, okay? And so according to these texts and tablets, there was a concurrent civilization running on Mars. And according to these anomalies that we're looking at, there's something that they're not telling us. Let's take a look at a few more anomalies, okay? Let's take a look at a few more of these. Take a close look at this. This is pretty interesting. Epic of what? Epic of Atrahasis. Let me type it in for you. EPIC of ATRAHASIS. I just typed it in the live chat. Epic of Atrahasis. Okay, go ahead and read that. Thank you for the donation. Look at this object right here and look in the center of the image towards the top area. You'll see what looks like a waterfall. Now, I'm not saying it's a waterfall. Shout out to Martine Graney. She's one of the top anomaly hunters that we have in the United Family of Anomaly Hunters. It's a group that we formed a few years ago. And she's amazing. But take a look at that. Now, they showed water coming down the side of a mountain on live TV in 2000, I think it was 15 or 16, when they made their official statement that there is water on Mars. So not as shocking anymore. But take a look at this one. Are they just rocks, or are they rocks that look like something? You can be the judge for that. You can be the judge, but they're very interesting rocks. That's all I could tell you. They're very, very strange and interesting rocks. These are some more interesting rocks that almost kind of look like a ziggurat, like the one in Iraq. I mean, I'm not saying it's a ziggurat. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, if your mind's eye can look at the ziggurat in Iraq and look at this, they have a lot of similarities. They don't look exactly the same, but they look very similar. I mean, if these are just rocks, they're stacked in a very unique way. This is pretty interesting. These rocks, you know, they have a pretty interesting way of looking or shaped. They're very interestingly shaped rocks that kind of resemble something. Again, I don't know what it is, right? Have no idea what it is, but they resemble something. You be the judge. Here's another stack of rocks that look strange. Seem to have some type of symmetry and 90-degree angles again. Not sure exactly what it is. Just again, very strange rocks. This is an incredible rock. This is a really, really good one here. Shout out to Martine Graney again. She does a phenomenal job hunting these anomalies down through, going through thousands of hours of official images. What's up, DS? Thousands of hours to scour to find these anomalies. All night long, she stays up for hours on end looking for these anomalies. And then catalogs them and then provides a source link. The source links are on the images at the very, very top are all the source links. So you want to find out these source links for yourself, you can screenshot the video and then type in the source link and pull it up for yourself. Another interesting stack of rocks here. Very interesting stack of rocks here on Mars. You know, how'd they get like that? How did they get stacked in that exact order? Or how did the wind and rain carve that shape, those shapes? I don't know. Another amazing anomaly here. This made it on TV. What's that doing there? That's pretty interesting rocks, if you ask me. Pretty interesting rocks. Some more interesting rocks. I mean, it's very artistic, I'll tell you that much. Again, all the source links are provided at the top of each image, so anyone can look these up for themselves and come up with their own decision. Make up your own mind. A shout out to Martine Graney again. She's done a phenomenal job. You know that we were told that Mars is just a cold, dry rock. And it's red. Well, Mars images are not red. They add a red tone to the images and they call it false color. They've been doing that for decades. They finally just stopped doing the red coloring and giving us the real images, the real color of the images more recently. This is from my Celestron telescope. This is Mars in the summer. Take a good look at the image captured from my telescope. That's my personal telescope. Take a very good look at this image of Mars. You see the blue, you see the green. Yeah, now they're saying there's life on Mars, and the life that they're showing is green. Well, of course it's green because there's life there. There's life on Mars. It's not a cold, dry rock. They spent trillions of dollars going to Mars. Trillions and trillions of dollars going to Mars. Okay, it's not a cold, dry rock. Let me get into this other, where's this other thing I want to show y'all? There's a little bit of a slideshow. I'm just trying to find, oh, I know what it was here. I want to show you these images over here. I got them on the side. Dang, I had so many images, I had to put some over here. Take a look at this. Here we go. I mean, come on. I can't. Take a look at that. That's pretty interesting, right? Let me take the telescope down. Take a look at that. Let me pull it back up again. Take a look at this. I mean, they call it a, they said it's a rock. They're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. They told us this is a rock. Hey, they said this is a rock, okay? Interesting. That's all I could tell you. That's one hell of a rock. I mean, it's an alien rock. Maybe alien rocks look like that. Okay? If that's what they want us to believe. Okay. Now, who am I to argue with them? Take a look at this. I put this on Twitter a few weeks ago. 3 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, I put this on Twitter. This is before the press release came out yesterday. Take a close look at that. Take a really good look at that rock on the side of a cliff, or those rocks. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Yeah. Nice rocks. That's all I can tell you. Shout out to Martine Graney again. She's an absolute. She is the absolute best in anomaly hunting, bar none. Bar none. She comes in with she finds the most amazing anomalies and presents them in a way when you post them that everyone can really get a chance to admire the anomaly. And sometimes I can find an anomaly and it won't come out as nice as hers because I don't know how to frame it properly. But she's an artist, so she knows how to frame it to where it's in the center. You can clearly see it. She knows how to expand it and blow it up to where you can see it properly and really take it all in. So when you see that, that looks like one of my cousins. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you. It's pretty interesting. I'm gonna pull this one down. So Mars is a very interesting place with interesting situations, interesting science coming out about the planet itself in terms of its habitability. I believe that you can live on Mars right now. It would take some acclimation, but I was just at 17,000 feet above sea level in the Andes Mountains 2 months ago. 2 months ago, I was in the Andes Mountains at 17,000 feet above sea level. I hiked with the crew who came with me, the people that came on tour with me to Peru and Bolivia. We hiked 105 miles. We hiked 105 miles. At our highest point, we were at 17K. The oxygen is very thin. Every step that we took felt like we were lifting 1,000 pounds with our feet. It was hard. It was very taxing on the body. I will not lie. On that trip, I lost 18 pounds in 11 days. Because when you're up that high, you can't eat a lot of food because your body has to make a decision. Do I process oxygen for the brain, or do I send the oxygen to the digestive tract to digest this food? So the body makes a decision and says, no, the brain needs this so we can function. And then it makes you puke and throw up your food. So you can only eat small amounts of food when you're that high. There's an acclimation process that takes place, and it takes a while to really get acclimated to that height. But it would be the same equivalent of living on Mars. It'd be tough, it'd be hard, but it can be done. And I believe that most of the people or the structures that they're building for infrastructure to live there is going underground anyway. That's just my personal opinion. Okay? But I hope you guys had a great time. You guys and gals had a great time exploring a little bit of these Mars anomalies with me. I want to show you a few more things here before I get out of here. Just a few more strange things. So this was one of my first anomalies that I ever found. It's called the Presidential Panorama. And this is on washington.edu, university. They host the data for the imagery. And all I did was expand and blow up what was there in the background. Same thing as Martine Graney does. Matter of fact, I learned a technique from her. And you can see three things. I give them a name only because I don't know what else to call them. I'm not saying that's what they are, but those three things are named. One is technology. Well, two things are called technology, and one is called the Sphinx. Is it a Sphinx? I don't know. It might just be a bunch of rocks. But I named it the Sphinx just because it had a similarity to something that my mind and my eye can recognize. But it does not mean it is a Sphinx. It means something's weird about it. Okay? Something's very strange about it. And this is my very, very first anomaly that I ever posted. I believe this is probably back in 2013. I believe this was 2013 when I posted that. This looks like a pile of rocks. But if you can see the red arrow in this image, it's pointing to something. You might need to be on a bigger screen to see it, but it's an ankh, or let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. It's something that looks like it's a rock that looks like an ankh on the ground. Very well shaped, but it's a rock that looks like an ankh. So if you want to blow this up later on and take a look at it, zoom in for yourself and take a look at that. Of course, you know about the famous face on Mars taken by Viking 1 in 1976. Now, there's a place on Earth called Dir Allah. Now, at Dir Allah, if you're in the sky in an airplane, you look down, guess what you see on Earth? The face on Mars. And it's thousands of years old. Somebody knew about this face. This is the face of somebody that was being worshipped. To what end? I have no idea, but according to the ancient Sumerian text, this may be Alalu, King Alalu, or he tried to become a king. He tried to usurp authority and become a king, and he was banished to die on Mars. And it's believed that this was a temple. This face was a giant temple to him. And they built a replica of it on Earth thousands of years ago as well, in Dir Allah. Okay. And the face is located here at this terraformed area of Cydonia. You can see that this looks like a lion, a lioness, right? You can clearly see that. I mean, anyone can see that. Even a kid can see it. This entire area is terraformed, and there are objects, anomalies, even the five-sided pyramid there, the face. Cydonia, they named it Cydonia. Cydonia is an ancient name for Cairo, which is in Egypt. Somebody knows something and they're just playing games with us with word salad. Here's the five-sided pyramid that rests here in that area of Cydonia. And here's the mathematics for the D&M pyramid. It's called the D&M pyramid. And here's the mathematics. Here's the cosine, the radians, and everything else. If you know any basic calculus like I do, there you go. It's hard to get wind and rain to create this kind of a structure. It's very, very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's very difficult. Here's another strange object, a stack of rocks that looks like Mercury's cap. Who's Mercury, by the way, in the Greek text? Thoth. the Atlantean, aka Hermes, aka Odin, same person. What's this doing here? This is Sol 38 on Mars. Sol 38 on Mars. The Gigapan link is right there on the image. You can take this image and screenshot it, type in that link, and pull it up for yourself. I beg you to do it for yourself. I beg you to do it. This is a gigantic stone area, and these rocks kind of resemble a face. They call it the princess. It's 4 miles wide. This is taken from space. This is taken from a satellite orbiting Mars. It's 4 miles. That's a hell of a job. If this is artificial, it's a hell of a job that they did to create a 4 mile wide terraformed face. This is another one of the first objects that I ever pulled up on Mars. If you take a look at this object, it's got geometry. It looks like something that's just broken to me. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't look like the surrounding rocks in the terrain. So it's been cataloged. Not sure what it is. Something very strange, though. Oh, what's this? What are these things? These are just rocks that look like they're looking at the camera. That's all it is. These are just rocks that are looking at a camera. I mean, on the mast cam of the rover. That's all. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here, guys and gals. Crazy stuff. There we go. Street Cap 1. There you go. Aaron knew it was coming up. Aaron typed in Street Cap before I pulled the image up. There we go. Interesting. What is this? NASA? When I emailed this to NASA, they sent me a message back and said that I have pareidolia, that these are just rocks. Pareidolia is when you see rocks that look like things. So they basically try to tell me I'm just crazy. But these are just good old-fashioned rocks. But I'd like to have some rocks like this on Earth, because that means I can build something I can utilize as tools. But these are some amazing rocks. They said it's just rocks, guys. They said, feel free to publish it if you want. I said, okay. Just rocks. Rocks on a dirt road. With a gun turret in the back, shadow on the ground. Interesting. You know those guys that are on Gaia talking about the Mars Defense Force? Saying that there's a military there already? Hey, I don't know. Something's weird. R2D2 type artifact on Mars. Not saying it's R2D2. It could be some fancy shiny rocks. Here's another amazing anomaly discovered by William. And yeah, these don't look like the rocks in the surrounding area, so it's been cataloged. Not sure exactly what this is. Just doesn't look like rocks. Like I said before, Mars is the god of war. Now, the tank is only there to show you an example of what this thing reminds us of, but we're not saying it's a tank. But what we are saying is, it damn sure looks like a tank. That's all we're saying. The Ankh that we showed you earlier in the video clip, here it goes. Another Ankh. There's about 16 Ankhs that we've discovered on Mars. Oh, let me rephrase that. There are about 16 rocks that look like Ankhs. This made it onto Ancient Aliens. And, you know, I've been on Ancient Aliens before. Shout out to Martine Graney for her work and Joe White for his work. This made it onto TV, mainstream TV on the History Channel. This object, which looks like an ornate carved statue laying on its side, made it onto mainstream TV. Scientists, archaeologists, astroarchaeologists, and astroanthropologists looked at this and they were stunned. Nobody can figure out what the hell. It made it into Huffington Post, CNN. They had a lot of questions, but they never got any answers back as to what the hell this is doing there. Pretty crazy, huh? This is called Victoria Crater. Victoria Crater on Mars. And this anomaly is one of the very first ones that I've ever saw that made my eyebrows rise up. Like, you know, I normally have my eyes really low because I got the sleepy eyes, but this opened my eyes all the way up. Like, what in the hell is that? And this is one of my discoveries. This is before I was forbidden knowledge. They used to call me Coach Billy. So for many, many years, I was called Coach Billy. So I used to tag everything Coach Billy Carson. My personal Facebook page is still Coach Billy Carson. But that was before I was forbidden knowledge. Just how far back this goes. And the Gigapan link to the actual raw image is right there on the image. And shout out to Neville Thompson for stitching these Gigapans together, spending countless hours stitching together Gigapans for us to be able to access the raw data. So thank you, Neville. That's Sol 1112. Okay, JPL. That's pretty interesting. I don't know what it is. I like to say it don't look like a rock, so I cataloged it. I put a circle around it and I said, guys, take a look at this. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but just somehow to me don't look like a rock. I'm just not convinced it's a rock. You might see a rock. Guess what? That's okay. I just don't know what it is. And you've seen this. These rocks look amazing. Looks like something you see in Mohenjo-Daro. When you go to Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan and look up that ancient culture that was destroyed by some type of weapon, and you see the body still laying in the street holding hands today on Earth. This kind of reminds me of Mohenjo-Daro. That kind of reminds me of Mohenjo-Daro. If these were real people, they died right there. And by the way, somebody's saying, well, if they're dead, how come they're not deteriorated? Well, you got to remember, it's a desert, number one. If you have, where do we find most of our mummies on Earth? We find most of our mummies in deserts, lack of humidity. Number two, significantly reduced oxygen. So with a lack of oxygen and lack of humidity, it creates the perfect conditions for natural mummification. Another strange rock here on the side of a cliff. This, don't know what the heck that is. Just strange. Protruding out of the side of a cliff. A couple of weird rocks. Some with 90-degree angles and another one that looks like something. We don't even know what the heck it is. Something broken maybe. I showed you this one earlier. Very interesting rock there. Look at this. This is pretty cool. Some nice rocks stacked up on top of a hill. And that's my last one there. Pretty cool stuff. So now you know why I spend time and energy going through these sites and downloading raw images and scanning and looking for anomalies, because I'm finding some of the most amazing things, and so are everyone else on the team. Neville Thompson, Martian, Graney, What's Up in the Sky, and all the other people in the group, David, Thomas, Jensen, and there's so many people. Forgive me if I'm not mentioning everyone's name at the moment. There's just so many of them. But there's plenty of groups on Facebook that have Mars anomalies. A lot of great anomaly hunters doing a great job, a great service to humanity every single day, scanning through hundreds, sometimes thousands of images by themselves to pull these things out, to show the world that, hey, there's something going on, or something went on and happened right above our heads. Stop looking 20 million light years for an exoplanet orbiting a star and going, that planet might have water and life. No. The reason why they keep going to Mars, they spent trillions of dollars going there, trillions, is because they know that there was an ancient civilization there. They know that there are remnants of ancient technology there and artifacts all over the place. And they want to get their hands on it so they can find a way to reverse engineer it and then monetize it, and also control the narrative of history. Because all of a sudden, if there was a habitable, if Mars was a habitable planet with life on it, and that life was humans, with all their narratives completely fall apart about religion and all these things just collapse. They collapse. They fall apart. We're supposed to be the most technologically advanced civilization ever on the planet. That collapses because there's text where they talk about traveling back and forth from Earth to Mars. And that text is 6,000 and 7,000 years old. So now we find anomalies on Mars that match what was talked about in the text. Come on. There's a lot going on they're not telling us. But they finally did exactly what I said they were going to do. They finally announced, like I said, from 2011, every single year I've mentioned it until now, that in 2025, they're going to announce that there's life on Mars. And they're going to come out and say it's bacteria or microbial life. And I was right again, just like I was right about the area underneath the Great Pyramid and the pyramid complex at Giza 5.5 years ago when I wrote my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, and I put a rendering of what it might look like in the book. And it's exactly what it was. And people told me I was crazy and I was making these stories up. But it happened. It just came out. Matter of fact, the gentleman that created the technology to find that underground area underneath Giza, Armando May and Filippo Biondi, shout out to those two incredible men. Armando May just came up with a new book, and I wrote the foreword to his book, which is available on Amazon. So, you know, just keep staying on the right side of history. But Mars is an amazing place. I believe that it's habitable right now, that you have to wear some protective gear at certain times and you can't go too high up. Most likely the best place to build is underground. Now, what is the temperature on Mars? Yes, it gets cold on Mars, but you know what? It also gets pretty cold on Earth. You can Google an article that came out about it came out about 8 years ago. There's an article that came out. Mainstream news said that Chicago and I think Wisconsin were colder than Mars on those days. Mars has huge temperature swings, but so does the Mojave Desert. So does the Sahara Desert. I've been in the desert. In the day, it can reach 110. At night, it can reach 40 degrees. That's the same swings you have on Mars. The hottest temperature ever recorded on Mars at the equator by Spirit rover, 99 degrees. I'll say that again. The highest temperature ever recorded by Spirit rover at the equator on Mars, 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty comfortable, isn't it? So, that picture I showed you from my Celestron 1300, there you go. That's Mars in the summer. It's not a cold, dry rock. I'm sorry. It's not a cold, dry rock. There's a lot going on up there. Remember, we talked about in one of my podcasts, we talked about the remote viewer. The remote viewer that discovered from his remote viewing that there was life on Mars in a very long time ago. He went way back. So there's a document entitled Mars Exploration, May 22, 1984. Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984. It's a declassified CIA document. Let me say that again. It's a declassified CIA document. And a transcript talks about a remote viewing session that was conducted on that date. And in this session, the subject was named, his last name was McMonagle. His name was what was this guy's name? His name was Joseph McMoneagle. That was his name. Joseph McMoneagle. I knew it'd come back to me. Joseph McMoneagle, he basically described a specific geographic area on Mars, but the target they gave him was 1 million years BC. Now, I don't know why the CIA gave him this target to go back that far, but they selected a target. Now, the way that targets work in remote viewing is like this. So the person that wants, or the group that wants the intelligence or the intel on a target, that's what the CIA does. They will isolate a specific time and location. So in this case, they selected 1 million years BC, location Mars. There's a reason why they chose that. We don't really know, but they had an idea that something was going on. Otherwise, they wouldn't have selected that target. Now, the ultimate person that's going to give the target ID number to the remote viewer, they actually focus consciously on the target. So in this case, the person the CIA agent that's going to hand him the actual target ID, he's literally focusing on the target, the time, the location, and the time frame, 1 million years BC, Mars. And he hits a random number generator. So his consciousness is synced into the random number. When the random number is given to the remote viewer, all they get is a number. They haven't been privy to any conversation prior to that. They don't know what the target is, where it's located, what the CIA is trying to get out of this. They have no clue. They don't know any agendas. They know nothing. All they get is the number. When they have that number, the next thing that they do is they begin the process of remote viewing, where the first thing you do within the first several seconds of seeing, not even a second, but within the first less than 1 second of seeing the number, you create something called an idiom. It's a scribble. It's a type of a scribble on the paper. Once the idiom is created, then the actual remote viewing process begins, and you're tapping into the out of space, out of time, quantum entangled information that number can bring you through conscious, locked in intent. And then the mind is sent outside of space and time, and it goes to the target. It goes to the target because those numbers are already imbued with the target location and time frame. And through the session, the subject, who's McMoneagle, he began to report perceiving various surface features on Mars, including pyramid structures. He described large pyramids. He said the pyramids had forms situated in depressed areas. He also said he saw obelisks. He said he saw tall, thin structures reminiscent of the Washington Monument. He also talked about seeing lots of storms, significant dust storms that were affecting visibility. Now, what did the Igigi say in the Sumerian tablets? They said that they were tired of working on Mars because of the sandstorms and the rough and harsh conditions on Mars. And what did this remote viewer say? He said storms were significant. Dust storms were affecting visibility. He witnessed the terrain, canyons, cliffs, large flat expanses. He mentioned sensing the presence of shadowy, dark figures. He described them as tall, thin humanoids who appeared to be in a state of hibernation or deep sleep within some of these structures. Some of the temples and pyramids themselves, these people were inside of stasis chambers, or what does Thoth call it in the Emerald Tablets? The halls of Amenti, where they would put bodies in them and let the bodies rejuvenate for 100 years at a time. So he stumbled across the remote viewing halls of Amenti, where it's known that they had many of these halls of Amentis all over the place, according to the ancient text. He stumbled into one of them. Shadowy, dark figures inside of stasis chambers. That's where I take people when I go to Egypt, which I'm going to be in Egypt in 2 weeks. I am taking people to Egypt again. Another 90 people are going to Egypt with me. I'm taking them to a halls of Amenti underground in Saqqara. And they're going to see these stasis chambers with their own eyes. And they're going to touch them with their own hands. And we'll send you back photos like we do every single year. The halls of Amenti. And they see, so he sees the people, he senses these dark, shadowy figures in the stasis chambers. And he said that these beings were perceived as an alien race facing an environmental catastrophe. And he said that the session involved monitoring and providing specific coordinates and prompting the subject to describe corresponding impressions. He did a phenomenal job, and everything that he talked about going back 1 million years matches perfectly with the Sumerian story. Because as you've seen me talk about over the years in my podcast and in other people's podcasts, when they say, well, how advanced are they? And I say, they are 1 million years ahead of us. There's a song that I did with Donnie Arcade where one of the verses we wrote in the actual song say they're 1 million years ahead. One of the very first songs I ever produced with Donnie Arcade on the first album. 1 million years ahead. And this document comes out recently, declassified, and they send McMonagle back 1 million years. By the way, he's going to come on my podcast, by the way. He's coming on, the remote viewers coming on the Forbidden Knowledge podcast. I'll have him here probably sometime in October. Okay. So like I said, a lot going on. There's a lot going on Mars. Just a lot going on. Very interesting story. I have the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. I'm dropping a link again to the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. If you're looking for a tribe, if you'd like to talk about things that really, that are really important, that are really about building a legacy, about building self-improvement, about really helping to shift a paradigm on this earth and change the way that everyone thinks and functions and loves. And also, of course, creating abundance, building a legacy, learning how to build something for yourself, entrepreneurship, to be mentored in the right way. I will be your mentor inside the Forbidden Knowledge Academy, myself and my coaching team, and the 1,200 incredible leaders that are in there with me. There's 1,200 of us now, 1,200 people, all on the same frequency and the same vibe. If you are tired of the status quo, if you are tired of a lack of abundance mindset, if you are tired of functioning on the frequency of scarcity and depletion and exhaustion and frustration, join the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. It's the #1 self-improvement online school on the entire school platform. School has over 200,000 communities. We're #1 in self-improvement and #8 on the entire platform. Oh, and by the way, Alex Hormozi contacted me 3 days ago, and he's going to interview me on his podcast, and that will be Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be with Alex Hormozi. He'll be interviewing me. Okay, who was he? Well, he's the guy who invented the school platform, not invented, but built the school platform, and he just broke the Guinness World Book of Records 2 weeks ago. He sold 3 million books in one day. 3 million books in one day. Alex Hormozi. He's in the Guinness World Book of Records now. And I'll be on his podcast Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll post links to it everywhere. Shout out to Coco Renee. Appreciate you. All right. It's going to be a great thing. So the link is being dropped in the live chat. It's also in the caption of this video. It could be in the caption of this post or my story. Make sure you go check out the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. It's an incredible place to learn and grow. And we have great giveaways as well. All right. Just for you learning. Just for you learning, you get an opportunity to win things for learning. Okay. Anyway, I want to see you in there. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out tonight. Thank you for taking the patience and time and effort to learn about Mars. Okay. To learn about these incredible rocks that are up there. You can share this information. Go research it for yourself. I appreciate you. I love y'all. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.